So Paul has a great strategy for dealing with the Corinthians in their divisions and disunity, their factionalism. He responds to them in several different ways. The first way we saw a few days ago, where Paul talks about the proclamation of the gospel and the foolishness of God greater than man's wisdom or supposed wisdom. Then Paul talks about himself and his own fear and trembling. And in the second part of chapter 2, he now brings in another element of his argument to argue against the whole factionalism and division thing by talking about the Holy Spirit himself. And here Paul will then use this to develop the argument from the Corinthians themselves in chapter 3, and then in chapter 4 he will talk about the apostolic ministry himself. All four chapters are responding to the problem of divisions within the life of the church. But Paul is now using the argument from the Holy Spirit. Just because someone claims to be spiritual does not mean that they understand the essence or the hiddenness of God. As Paul says, we impart a secret and hidden wisdom of God, which God has decreed. In other words, this is a secret revelation, not Gnostic, but a revelation that must come from God. Only God can make God known. That's the beauty. That's why he says, no eye has seen, nor ear heard, nor the heart of man imagined what God has prepared for those who love him. Only God can make God known. Or as Karl Barth once said, God is known through God alone, which is actually a great phrase. This is what Christians mean by revelation. So once a person gets this secret wisdom, then they gain God's wisdom. So Paul can say that factions then have no place. They remain an infantile response to the gospel. Tribalism becomes absolutely worthless because when God reveals himself, as he says right at the end of chapter 2, for who has understood the mind of the Lord so as to instruct him? In other words, nobody except those to whom God has revealed. And then he adds, but we church, we have the mind of Christ.